Kim Il-sung was the founder of what Western countries call North Korea, or formerly called, ever since the founding, even until this day, called the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, or DPRK. And this man may not be as talked about as much due to due to other people who are of more notable worthiness of discussion, such as Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels and Vladimir Lenin. But he is of considerable rhetoric. And the reason why is because even until this day, his country in which he founded is still relevant to us to this day, and especially back then in history. The country of Korea was a country that was one nation, and Korea is similar to other East Asian nations such as China and Japan. And this one Korea ended up dividing into two Koreas, into North and South. And the Russians, or more accurately the Soviets, which not only encompassed Russia, but Kazakhstan and Mongolia and other countries stretching across Ukraine, helped or backed the North Korea, and the United States, or the West, backed South Korea. And just by looking at the countries, we can obviously tell the differences of influence, of culture, and just the entire summation of everything I've just uttered. Now, Korea was under Japanese imperialism. Japan used to be an empire at the time, and perhaps if you are American, you can recall back in World War II, where Japan struck Hawaii, or Pearl Harbor, which was a military base, and that occurred on December 7th. And as you know, at that time, Japan was an empire, and it not only invaded many countries such as Korea and that of the United States, but also of the Philippines and China as well, which is why a lot of Chinese individuals have a strong hate toward Japanese individuals. It makes sense. I don't blame them for any hate when it comes to Japanese because of the historical tensions that have occurred between them. But Japan has also implemented their imperial aggression on Korea as well, back in around the time of Kim Il-sung. And as Korea was divided up into two different countries, we see this was due to Japanese imperialism. And so Japan, as they invaded Korea, Kim Il-sung, as a young kid here, Kim Il-sung was a young individual here, and he was in a prison. And in this prison, he gathered many people who would follow him along the path of revolution, revolutionary struggle. And as he gathered many people and as many people joined him against the struggle against Japanese imperialism, he was a young individual at this time. And so he gathered a lot of followers. They all followed him, and they all went to war against Japan. And they also see the United States as an imperialist aggressor as well, by the way. But in relation to this current moment, Japan is the imperialist aggressor, and Kim Il-sung and his followers of individuals come together and fight against Japanese imperialists in Korea. And it's probably every revolutionary's momentary event of attention. It certainly is when it comes to Che Guevara and Cuba's revolution against the government before communism came into existence in Cuba. And right now, it is of worthy attention, especially in regard to Kim Il-sung and his revolution as well. As, like I said, it is a noteworthy moment for revolutionaries around the world who see this event as something to be learned and studied, and just an incredible time of history of a group of a nation liberating themselves from the hands of imperialist aggressors. This is every Marxist-Leninist or Kim Il-sungist ideal, since it liberates the colonialist aggressor, and a time to implement Marxism or Marxism-Leninism or socialism or Kim Il-sungism or any other socialist or communist ideology as a result of colonialism. Now, Kim Il-sung and his group of individuals who have fought against Japanese imperialism successfully win. They successfully win. And because they successfully win, Kim Il-sung decides to establish the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, or commonly known today as North Korea. And so, as Kim Il-sung grew older and older, his philosophical ideology came to be known as Kim Il-sungism, but in Korean it came to be known as what is called Juche. And Juche is roughly translated into the English as self-reliance. And not self-reliance in the sense of how, well, it's argued according to one scholar that I know, that it is not traditionally self-reliant in the traditional sense, but to be honest, it's an accurate translation, because when we read the texts of the Juche ideology or the Juche idea by Kim Jong-il, who is the son of Kim Il-sung, or the father of the present-day supreme leader of North Korea, Kim Jong-un, we see on the Juche idea, written by Kim Jong-il, he says that the Juche idea, that Juche is about the people. It is all about the people being the destiny of the future of a society, that the people are the constructors of the revolution. That is Juche. That the people are the constructors of revolution. that perhaps one may be a religious individual or a superstitious individual that may pray to some sort of deity, or to perform some incantation to free oneself from the aggressor. But clearly, according to empirical means, the people are the masters and constructors of destiny or of the revolution. That is the essence of Juche, is that the people are the masters of the destiny. The people are the masters of revolution. Thus, one need not to pray. One need not to perform incantations to free oneself from an aggressor, because it is clear from empirical means, it is verified by empirical means, that it is the people who are the ones that must liberate themselves. And what's interesting is that you can get some kind of you get a kind of Buddhist feel to this kind of thing, since I don't know if any of you guys have watched the movie Kundun, which is about China's peaceful liberation of Tibet from feudal theocracy and serfdom and slavery. But the Dalai Lama in the movie Kundun, which the Chinese communists told the Dalai Lama when he was younger at this time, this is that we're here to liberate you. And then the Dalai Lama said, only I can liberate myself. And it's very true, because it is only the people's actions which can truly liberate oneself from whatever means, whether it is mental struggles, whether it is suffering from the Buddhist side, or whether in the Juche or Kim Il-sungist tradition, as we are looking at right now, it is only the people who can liberate themselves from a colonialist aggressor or an imperialist aggressor from a foreign nation. Think of it, for example, like, I don't know if this would apply, I'm not too familiar with if they have done that. Think of it as Star Wars and the Empire. If the Empire has decided to invade a country or do something, then the resistance is the revolutionaries. And the Empire, let's just call it Japan, let's just call it the Japanese Empire. And the resistance is who? The DPRK, or the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, or just the people. And then they're the masters of the construction of the revolution. They're the masters of the destiny. So if a lot of people decide to overthrow an empire that is currently if a place is occupied by an empire, then if the people continue to persist and go to war against that occupier or aggressor, it will come to a successful end. A perfect real-life example, forgetting Star Wars or forgetting fictional movies here at this point, a real-life example of this is the Vietnamese when it comes to the French colonialists. France, not only Japan was a colonialist aggressor, but also France was as well. France was in Vietnam. That's why a lot of Vietnamese people perhaps may speak French or have some kind of French in their language, I don't know, but just the fact that some of the food and the written language is derived from Latin text, which shows the French influence that has happened from colonial times during the time of Ho Chi Minh. And so Ho Chi Minh himself, we can equate him to Kim Il-sung, gathered the Vietnamese people under French colonial rule. Okay, now we could correlate this back to North Korea under Japanese colonial rule. And Ho Chi Minh decides to gather a band of Vietnamese people here. And he gathers the band of Vietnamese people, he ends up, and also, just so you know, Ho Chi Minh was a Leninist as well. He was a Marxist-Leninist, and he is of the same ideology as Kim Il-sung, except Kim Il-sung has his own ideology, his own reformed idea of socialism. So, and Ho Chi Minh decides to gather his group of people, and they end up going to war against the French colonialists, and they end up winning, of course. They end up winning the entire war. So, Vietnamese become, so, I'm not sure about the exact name of it, but all I know is that Vietnam, before it became known today as Democratic Vietnam, was a different name at the time, but after the revolution, after the successful overthrow of the French colonialists in Vietnam, Vietnam decides to be called Democratic Vietnam. And that is an incredible thing. So the same thing when it comes to Korea, North Korea as well, which ends up being under Japanese rule. They end up calling themselves Democratic People's Republic of Korea, very similar to Vietnam in terms of literary language as well. Democratic Vietnam, Democratic People's Republic of Korea. You get the whole democratic language and the whole democratic rhetoric going on. It's a very interesting comparison there. One can say the same with the Chinese as well, but one of the closest examples of North Korea or DPRK under Japanese imperialism was Vietnam under French colonialism or French imperialism as well. And Kim Il-sung, he decides to, his new ideology of Kim Il-sungism forms, or Juche forms, and this is where we get a lot of literary texts called On the Juche Idea, and there are just many different texts on Kim Il-sungism and Juche in general. If one were to go online, you can even go on Marxist.org and see it for yourself, or just visit the Democratic People's Republic of Korea if you can on a free tour. You can contact any websites that offer free tours to the DPRK, and you'd be able to purchase several texts by them if you want a physical copy, or you can even purchase them online as well too. But nonetheless, a lot of his established theory of revolution can be sought online as well, if everyone is interested in searching that up. And so Kim Il-sung as his ideology forms, and as he is developing his country, he's developing North Korea, he's developing the DPRK, he ends up becoming a people's person. And a people's person, this is written in one of the texts. I forgot what the text name was, but it was written in one of the texts, since it's been a while since I've read it. But within the text, it says that Kim Il-sung became a people's person, and we see this on from a very early age when it comes to the very early stages before revolution, during the time that he gathered people to fight against Japanese imperialism. He was a young kid at the time. He was a young guy at the time. And so as he grows old, becoming a people's person as a young individual, he continues to become a people's person as an older individual as well. So he not only learns about revolution from experience, but he also learns about other various aspects of life as well, from farming to economics to every field that can be thought of, since it is in relation, of course, to the development of the country. The DPRK emphasizes self-reliance. It emphasizes the people being the masters and the constructors of the revolution. And that is the entire Kim Il-sung's philosophy, the entire Juche philosophy as well. So he emphasizes self-reliance. And he ends up learning, as I said, about many different fields, engineering, science, and all sorts of different fields and various aspects of thought, and simply fields, so long as they develop the entire country. And it's a very beautiful thing as well to see that. And during the 1990s, North Korea, or the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, the DPRK, was a time of, or at least during the time of Kim Il-sung. I believe it was in the, excuse me, not 19, I believe it was in the 80s or something like that, or not 1990s, excuse me. I believe it was before that, where Kim Il-sung was still alive and still contributing to the country very greatly. It was a country of prosperity. It was a beautiful country, a country that was flourishing and thriving and things of that sort. And if we compare it to South Korea today, which is backed by the United States, South Korea has its own capitalist system and its own way of life, and you could see it's advanced in technology, very similar to China. China is not a Juche country. It's not a socialist country either. It is a country that is capitalist too. So we see that capitalism can thrive and advance technology and technological innovation. There's more that can be done with capitalism, which is contrary to Karl Marx and Marxist thought, which would say that no, capitalism is not good. It's not good. It's perhaps an opiate to the masses as well. Not just religion, but capitalism as well is an opiate to the masses too. This is the entire point, guys, of me trying to talk to you, is to eliminate capitalism and to establish a proletarian state of socialists, which would eventually lead to communism, and a prosperous, happy nation for all men and all people of the world, all workers of the world, and all men or workers of the world unite. That's exactly what Karl Marx would say if he saw capitalism today. He said, no. Even though capitalism does this stuff, even though capitalism advances these things, it's still exploited. There's still people who are still in poverty. There's still people who have there's class division and things of that sort. And it's just not a system that should work. It's not a system it's not a system that will work for all men. It's a system that does work, yes, but it's not a system and it benefits, guess who? The landlords. It benefits the bourgeois. It benefits the bourgeoisie. It benefits those who are over the workers. And the proletarian only get surplus value. They only get what is, and it's not enough to survive. So Karl Marx, even though we see that happen, that capitalism can make a nation thrive, Karl Marx would seriously have something to say against it. Even though it makes some people, even though it advances society, it still exploits people as well by them obtaining surplus value. And it's not enough to survive, Karl Marx would say. So, yeah, definitely from a Marxist perspective in terms of a capitalist system, as China is now, or any other way of life, especially the United States, Marx would say, no, not good. Let's abolish capitalism. Let's start a revolution where we seize all the means of production. We seize the means of production, and we establish a proletarian state where people will thrive off of, or people will establish socialism, and the more we continue to do that, it would eventually evolve into communism. You have to understand Karl Marx too is a Hegelian, so he has the whole entire Hegelian. We have dialectics here in this way, dialectics as well, Hegelian dialectics, in terms of what is abstract and things of that sort as well. So going from one to the next and to the next. And history is a progression. So that's what Marx would say about the whole entire capitalist system. And apparently the DPRK today, or North Korea, does not have a capitalist economy. It doesn't have that kind of capitalist system. Perhaps if it did, it would be very similar to China or the United States or some other capitalist system, but it refuses to hold on to that system. And Karl Marx probably applied that, and he would say, look, you have to continue going on. You have to continue going on in this way of life, in this mode of life, and it will eventually lead to a communist society, to a society of happiness, and a society of no exploitation, and a society of equality and things of that sort. And it sounds just like from, if you, and it sounds just like it just sounds like the concept of heaven for religious individuals. It sounds just like the concept of heaven. Everyone's equal. There's no exploitation. There's no pain. There's no suffering. It's just all happiness, and all people are happy. And it's like a happy, it's literally like heaven or a utopia for more of an empirical and from a more empirical standpoint. It's more like a utopia, a happy utopia where everyone is happy, no one is sad, everyone is equal and things of that sort. So no one is exploiting each other, and there's no crime and things of that sort, because the state takes care of the people themselves, and which China is actually doing a really good job at security and things of that sort. I applaud China for that. Very good with its internal security, and it's a safe country and things of that sort. I've talked to a lot of people from China who have said that, so very good with that. And so that's exactly what utopia or a communist utopia should end up turning into, would be a place of happiness and a place of equality, a place where men and women are equal, a place where all sexual orientations are equal, and a place where that is safe, and it can only be safe and maintained by the state. The state has to continue. The state has to maintain its internal security. Otherwise, it's gonna go into chaos, which a lot of capitalist systems do. Karl Marx probably point that out as well, saying, look at all the capitalist systems, for example, are all just chaos. The United States is chaos with its distractions of racism and LGBTQ identity and things of that sort. Whereas North Korea or the DPRK they have an internal security that is secure and watched carefully and things of that sort by the state. And yeah, it's very Orwellian sounding, the same with China as well. And Karl Marx would probably also say too that, China also has a strong internal security. Even though it is a capitalist society, it is a socialist society with Chinese characteristics. So Karl Marx would probably say something about that as well. He would say something to that degree about China and the DPRK or North Korea. And so Kim Il-sung continues to advance his country more and more and more and more, lays out plans for the country of DPRK, North Korea, more and more and more. And then as he continues to make the country prosper and grow the country into the great democratic People's Republic of Korea or North Korea, he would continue to do this his whole life, and eventually passed away, leaving the DPRK with a son named Kim Jong-il, who eventually led the country next, and then led the country throughout the many years to come, and eventually Kim Jong-il passed away, and we get today's leader of the DPRK, or North Korea, Kim Jong-un. Okay? That is the progression from Kim Il-sung, the founder and the entire foundation of the country, which we know is North Korea today, to his son being Kim Jong-il, then to his son being Kim Jong-un as we know today, as the leader of that country. So now you know the entire history of the DPRK in a short hour. So Kim Il-sung is probably one of the most underrated studied individuals in history, and especially in the West as well, because we're so familiar with other individuals such as Karl Marx. Karl Marx is just very popular in our Western tradition, in the Western tradition. So Karl Marx is one of the most popular individuals as well. So we have alongside just people like Karl Marx. Karl Marx is literally just one of the most popular individuals that we can study, and he has a lot to say. He would have a lot to say about many issues today, and especially in regard to capitalism today, and especially in regard to the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. He would applaud the Democratic People's Republic of Korea today. He would say that this is very good, this is very good. So what you need to do is continue in your way of socialism. You need to continue building the society. The people need to continue building the society. And the more you build, the more you build, the more you build. And from the transition of socialism, it would eventually lead to communism, which would lead to utopia that is happy. And eventually, that is the entire goal of Karl Marx, of communism, is from revolution to socialism, then to communism. So Karl Marx would say something about that in regard to the DPRK in North Korea today. So Kim Il Sung was the founder of the nation of the DPRK or North Korea, as we know today. And his ideology of Kim Il Sungism, or Juche, is one of worthy consideration, knowing that Juche is the meaning of Juche is self-reliance, and not simply boiled down to the word self-reliance, but in more detail, it means that the revolution is dependent on the people, that the masters of the destiny and the masters of the construction of the revolution are the people. That is the more expanded version of Juche and Kim Il Sungism and Kim Il Sung thought.